Okay, so why is water conservation important to mammals? It is. Okay. Is there a connection between, well, everything needs water, but do mammals need more water or less water than other organisms, such as reptiles? We always compare them to reptiles. Fish?
More water because the metabolism or something.
Right, yeah, so you're going to have a higher metabolic rate, and so that means more processes. And water is fundamental for most metabolic processes, right? So even, all mammals, if they don't get access to water in one form or another, they're not going to be in good shape, okay? So there's three sources of water. Okay, direct water sources, these are ones that there's water there, and you drink it, okay? And these are the easy ones are, streams, and rivers, and lakes. Okay, but what are other accessible forms of water? Rain? Okay, there's one similar to rain, but not quite the same. Snow? Okay. Eat the snow. That's not what I was thinking. And so you'll find it in the morning generally, but not in the evening. Okay, yeah, so condensation on the plants in the morning, the dew, or fog. As it rolls in, it'll condensate as well. And that can be a source as well. Then we also have aquatic animals, which live in, there are some semi-aquatic animals, mammals, that live in and out of these streams and rivers and lakes. But fully aquatic mammals, where do they live? What type of water, though?
Salt water.
Yeah, so that's, is that accessible for drinking?
Not for us.
Not for us.
Not for us. I don't know if it's, is it for them.
Yes. Don't they have really efficient kidneys, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that how they do it?
But yes, so it is at a metabolic cost, though. They have to be able to filter out all the salt to get to the water. Okay, so that is important. Even though it's right there in front of them, like, obviously we can't drink that water because it's too salty. We can't get out the salt. We'll spend more energy trying to get the salt out than the water we would gain for it. Okay, so that's direct. Those are the kind of the easy ones to find. All right, metabolic water. So through metabolic processes, water is sometimes a byproduct, right? Mm-hmm. So especially carbohydrate. Catabolism produces water. So that is a source of water, just breaking down the food within it. And then preformed water is water that's in the food. Okay, so what are some foods that have lots of water in them?
Watermelon.
Watermelon, yeah. Nice juicy one. Okay, cactuses. No, you can do either one, actually. Both are grammatically correct.
Fruit.
Yeah, fruit, maybe some succulent leaves
Seed.
of some cacti, some seeds. Yes, meat, right? So, again, though, if you're in a marine environment and you're eating salty fish, the same thing, you have the same problem. Any water in there, preformed water, is still going to be pretty salty, so you're going to have to filter it out. Okay, but this is This is pretty much it for water. It's the only sources that you can get. Yeah.
Like under metabolic water, do you put like the water from brown fat? Don't they get like camels and stuff?
Yes, so that also is a good example. Camels burning fat reserves.
I don't know if there's any other animals that do that.
Well, not as much as camels, at least. But, hibernating bears, they don't go out and drink water. So they are getting water from burning their fat as well. Yeah.
So when people say that they store water in their humps, it's not like true. It's just that what they're doing, the fat that they store is how they get water.
Yes. Yeah, it's not made of water. You make a nice little water bed up there, but it's actually made of fat, which when they burn, they can harvest the metabolic water from it. But yes. So camels can go a really long time without drinking water, but that's only if they have the fat reserves to do that. Good. Yeah, so another one like lettuce. Lettuce has a lot of water in it. It actually doesn't have very much nutritious value to it, but it has a lot of preformed water within it. Okay, so one of the metabolic processes which requires a lot of water is excretion. Okay? Now, ammonia, what process is going to produce ammonia? Is this a byproduct? What's that?
Like what process or what?
Yeah, so why are we trying to get rid of nitrogenous waste?
Not from the kidneys, right?
Okay, yeah, so think before kidneys.
So would they filter out like your food, your byproducts and everything?
Yes, but what, so we talked about carbohydrates, fats, and then there's also proteins, right? Which of those is going to produce ammonia? What is fat made out of? Lipids. What are lipids made out of? Carbon and hydrogen. Right? No nitrogen. Oh, what about carbohydrates? Carbon, oxygen. What about proteins? Right, yeah, so proteins, you have a central carbon, you have a carboxyl group on one side, an amino group on the other side, a hydrogen, and then some different, the R group stands for whatever, right? So if you're breaking down protein for food, you can use all this over here for food, but this is not, can't be used for energy. So you have to get rid of that NH3. And so if you're going to break down this is amino acid, it has to go first through the process of deamination. This is an amino group. Ammonia, D, so you're taking off the amino group. That's all that means. Okay, but I like to refer to it as eternal deamination. But yeah, so then that becomes a problem. Why is NH3 then a problem? What do you know about ammonia? What's it used for? Cleaning. Why is it used for cleaning?
Because it's very toxic.
Yeah, it's toxic and reactive. So you don't want it in your body, right? So you want to get rid of it. But even actually as ammonia, it's still pretty toxic. So what we do and what mammals do is they convert ammonia into a less toxic substance called urea, which is very water soluble. You can fit quite a bit of it in a liter. But this process requires energy. Oops. And it also costs you water. So then when your kidneys do their work, they're going to dissolve urea and other excess waste products that are soluble and then excrete them. So the challenge for mammals is if they're in an environment where there's not a lot of water and they're eating or they're eating any amount of protein, they're going to have this water-soluble urine that they have to produce that's also going to lose water, and that's water they want to hang on to. So the nephron is the fundamental unit of the kidney. And its structure allows it to create variable concentrations in urine. Okay, so we're going to draw a nephron here. What's that? What did you say? Oh, yeah. All right, so what you first have is, we won't try to go into too much detail. But essentially you have this capillary, which has blood in it. And it exchanges fluid, and this capillary structure is called the glomerulus. It's actually the ball of blood vessels here. Glomerulus. And it forces fluid into the beginning of your tubular network of the nephron. Okay, this is called the Bowman's capsule. Okay, so this is initially where urea gets pushed out of the blood and pushed into now our nephron, our unit, which is filtering the blood. But it's in its uric acid form, and it's in that water form. So the kidney, I mean, you could just flush this straight out, but the kidney wants to retain water and salts so that it can reuse those. Okay, so we're going to measure concentration of the urine in milliosmolarity. And it starts at 300. And it's fine if you don't really understand what the units are. We're just going to show how the concentration changes. Okay, so 300, that's a number which represents how much solutes are dissolved in the fluid. Oops. So as the fluid goes down this first part of the tube, which is called the proximal convoluted tubule, and then it dips deep into this area called the medulla. And as it does that, it loses water. So if it loses water, what's going to happen to the concentration of the fluid? Right. So we'll say it's 600 here, and then 700. And in humans, it gets down at the very bottom to about 1200. Okay, and this is called, this part that it just went down is called the descending loop of Henle. I don't know who Henle is, but
What is it, the very bottom?
so this whole part that goes all the way down, kind of like down the slide,
Okay.
is the descending loop. And then going up, this is the ascending loop of Henle.
Henley. No.
Mm-hmm. Henle. So as it goes up, it starts to secrete salt. So if it's secreting salt, what's going to happen to the concentration? Right, so it'll actually go back to it'll secrete so much it'll even go as low as 100 at the top here. Okay, and it'll also secrete things like urea. And so now as you go deeper into the medulla, you're getting a concentration which is lower and lower.
So which part is considered, like what all is considered the medulla? The whole,
Just anything below that dotted line.
okay.
So it then goes into another convoluted part. This is called the distal convoluted tubule. And then there's millions of these nephrons, and they all empty into a larger collecting duct. But once it gets to the collecting duct, now it's at this 100. Okay, so if it just emptied that 100, it would still be very, there's still a lot of water in there, right? Whereas the 1200 had a lot of salt and a lot of the solutes in it. And so there's two options here. Well, at least humans we can alter. Let's say you're drinking lots of water. What color is your pee when you drink lots of water?
Clear.
Yeah. So if you're drinking lots of water, then you'll just pee out that dilute filtrate, and it'll be clear. Actually, I'm going to put it on the other side. But if you're dehydrated, your urine is very concentrated, right? It's dark. And so what actually happens is there are hormones that release, which are going to open these aqueducts. No, not aqueducts. Aquaporins. Now, what's an aquaporin?
For water.
Yeah, exactly. And it's passing through this medulla, which has the same concentration of, or the same concentration gradient that the tubule has that passed through it. So at this point, it's 600, and it goes all the way down to 1200. So just by osmosis, what's going to happen if these aquaporins open up?
Water's gonna come out.
And so by the end, you're going to have a concentrated urine that's close to what you started with at that loop of Henle. And then that water will be reabsorbed back into the bloodstream. There's also blood vessels that dip into here, and they'll reabsorb that water as well. Okay, so what happens if you drink water that has 1,500 milliosmoles of salt in it? Is you can't get enough, you'll lose water in the end, right? So by drinking that, by trying to get the salt out, you can't get enough of it out, and you'll end up absorbing more water than the salt that you can excrete, so it just dehydrates you more. Okay, but different mammals can make more concentrated urine. So for example, marine mammals that live in a marine environment, and what are other mammals that would need to have a very concentrated urine, that need to conserve water? Yeah, so desert mammals, especially small desert rodents, they're the best at this. Little kangaroo rats. And so what do you think is different about the kangaroo rats in their nephron that allows them to make more concentrated urine? Why don't you talk to your neighbor about it? For a longer time, so they could create a gradient that goes, I don't know, all the way down to 2,400 or something. So then when the collecting duct urine passes by through the medulla, it would have a more... Yes, that is what they do. Any other thoughts? So someone said more aquaporins. Would that could only help up to a point though, right? Because you can't, because of osmosis, unless you're actively pumping water, you can't get it any more concentrated than the gradient that you've set up. Right, so you can't get any greater than 2400 as your exchange.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
And it might be really dumb, but I don't.
Right, so what do we got? Okay. So behavior relate if they can avoid the sun. In the daytime. What do desert rodents do? Yeah, so being nocturnal is going to help if you're in a really hot environment. Okay, what else? What was the one we talked about last time? Has to do with something in their skull.
Having more of the little thingies in your nose.
The thingies in your nose. Yeah.
Don't they like catch moisture or something?
Yeah, so if this is your trachea, right? And your lungs need to be moist in order to exchange water. You have your oral cavity and your nasal cavity. I'm not drawing this very well. I'm going to exaggerate it. This is the nose, this is the mouth. I don't know what I'm drawing. Okay. So the turbinate bones here really just increase surface area. I'm going to draw them a different color. So as this moist, warm air passes through, it actually condenses on the turbinate bones so that when the air leaves the nose, it's now drier. And it also absorbs heat, so it's also cooler. And then when they breathe in, the moisture then evaporates back into the breath. And so they have the moisture, the air stays moist as it breathes in.
So if you breathe out through your nose, the air is cooler than if you breathe out through your mouth.
Yes. Unless they have panting going on, then that could be similar as well. But they should have breath that's colder than their body. And humans don't have developed turbinate bones. We kind of have some, but our breath is generally warm.
Would that be for
And
smaller
moist.
animals because they want to conserve body heat?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You want to conserve body heat and the moisture.
Yeah.
You can obviously tell that from that diagram. Right?
Yeah, it looks like a dinosaur.
I don't know what it looks like. That was my first attempt. Okay. Turbinate bones. All right, what else?
Okay, this might be wrong, but I have written down the ingestion of urine and feces of milk.
Yeah. All right, because milk has a lot of water in it. Milky. Milk is high in water, so some animals will re-ingest. I guess it's not re-ingesting, it's just ingesting once. So they will drink the urine and eat the feces of their little babies. If you're thirsty enough.
Summer change diaper. Mine monkeys.
So this is also brings up another point though. If you're stranded in the desert, right?
With the baby.
No, I guess with the baby. No, but could you drink your own urine?
Yeah,
Like a certain number of times.
Up to 7 times.
Are you sure it's 7?
Yep, it's 7.
That's too many.
Okay, the urine would have to have a concentration which is lower than 1200, right? So
You bring your centrifuge to the desert.
yeah, right. I don't think that works with solutes though, right?
But that's like a thing where the life of Pi is little raft boat. He evaporates all the water so the salt is left, and then you can drink what's been evaporated if you can catch it.
Yeah, so you can put your urine under a little like tent or something, and then as it evaporates and condensates on your little tent, you can drink off that. Sure, it doesn't taste that much better than urine, but but you could do that.
I would feel better about drinking it.
Okay, let's hope we'll never get there. So you can also have high protein, high fat, high protein milk. So just be stingy with that water. And baby will figure it out. Right? But if it's high in fat, then the baby can burn the fat and get some metabolic water from it as well. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Oh, well. Yeah. So that's about it. Concentrated urine. All right. So now we're gonna switch to locomotion. Yeah. So through today, we'll be on the test. Okay, so our ability to move is dependent on the muscles we have in our body. So this is a skeletal muscle that I drew here.
Beautiful.
Oh, I thought it was part of grass.
No. So a skeletal muscle cell, okay, called a myofibril. Myo means muscle. And when you look at skeletal muscle under a microscope, it has these bands. Okay. And what happens when you use your muscle is these bands contract and go closer together. Okay, that's the easy explanation. We won't go into detail. But that's what allows for movement. Now, muscles can only contract. They can't push. So those bands don't push each other away. But you can relax and then they will go back to their original position. But they can't provide force. So when you flex your bicep, you have a muscle that's shortening. The bicep is shortening, right? But to go put your arm back out, that muscle isn't pushing. It's you have another muscle on the other side which is contracting. So you always have matching muscles, one that contracts on one side and one on the other side, if they need to move back and forth. Yeah, that's the simplest mechanism, but there's, of course, exceptions to that. A mammal's ability to move faster, so to increase in speed, is really just a function of how many myofibrils it activates. Okay, so if it needs to go faster, it will just recruit more myofibrils to contract. Okay, and so speed, when you graph speed against metabolic rate, it's actually a linear relationship. If you need to go, so the amount of energy to activate one myofibril is constant. So 2 myofibrils, it just takes twice as much energy as 1. Right? 3 would be, so if you need to go faster, you need more myofibrils. It's going to cost you 1 more unit of energy to do that. So speed is linear. And then the fastest that you can go, right? That's you're using all your muscles. You can only go as fast as your muscles will allow. Okay, down to whatever your slowest is.
So does that mean that sloths have a slow metabolic rate?
Yeah, they don't move very fast. I don't know if their sloth is on here. It's just their line is going to be really short, right? So they don't have much variation in their speed. But here is a graph from your book. Oh, it won't let me do it all at once. Showing different sized animals, and then that same curve, how the velocity changes. Okay, what do you notice with size? What happens with size? The smaller you are,
The faster you can go.
well, no.
Their lines are more.
All right, discuss with your buddy.
Myofibril, you have. Oh, no, I can't see. You have.
You're good.
You basically said there's just like it could use like more oxygen, but they could use it better with like per myofibril, but they have less myofibrils, right?
You have less of a it seems like you have less of a potential for it, but per myofibril you have an increase in speed. I mean per myofibril because of the super short.
All right, the metabolic cost per myofibril is more in a smaller animal
So this
than
is
it
why
is.
like a chipmunk eats a lot more than like a horse, because when they run, they use it faster than when a horse runs.
Yeah, so it has to do with metabolic rate, right? So
So
But-
it's still going to take twice as much energy per myofibril, but it's going to be a greater amount. It's going to be this much instead of this much.
well, yeah, so to go from 1 to 2 meters per second, right? If you just look over here,
Because their muscles are shorter.
it's going to take quite an increase in metabolic rate. Then, yeah, because their muscles are shorter, exactly. So to go the same distance, they have to use that myofibril, depending on the size, twice as much. But yeah, if their leg is twice as short, then they have to contract it 3 times in that meter, where the bigger animal has to only contract it once. Does that make sense? So the way that the book explains this is per stride. Okay? So a horse can do a meter per second. If it's at full gallop, it probably covers, 3 meters per stride. Okay? But then a chipmunk, to go 3 meters, there's going to be a lot of strides, right? So it's metabolic rate in recruiting those myofibrils is going to cost a lot more. Okay, good. Yeah, that was the perfect explanation. All right, you should volunteer summer next time. Okay, there are a few things, however, which allow for more efficient use of energy, use of those myofibrils. Okay? So when you look at kangaroos, well, how do they move that's different than us or anything else? They hop, right? Yeah, they get off the ground a little bit. This line right here. This is what most mammals have, this linear relationship, right? But when you look at the kangaroo, it actually decreases the amount of energy it uses up to about 30 kilometers an hour. How could it do that? Magic. Close. It has, it has a little, it's basically spring-loaded in its leg. And when it lands, it is able to, rather than lose all that energy, it recoils and transfers it back into its next hop. So the hopping acts as like a little spring-loaded. So the faster it goes, the more energy it's using, but it also recycles that energy more. So it doesn't have to use the same unit of measure. It doesn't have, per myofibril, it's saving energy. But they aren't very good walkers. Aren't. So that line between the white and the gray, that's their walking and then hopping, right? So they're not very good. And walking is, right, they mostly just hop. But if they had to walk, they'd be very good. Speed walking was an Olympic sport for a while. I don't know.
If they do walk, if I'm right,
I don't
they
know.
walk on all fours when they do walk usually? They're like more hunched over when they're walking?
I don't know if they ever like kind of use support their body weight with the front ones. But so walking is just alternating feet. They might waddle around a little bit. Of course, that's horrible waste of energy for them. So yeah, they mostly just hop. Okay, so similar to that though in dolphins. Okay, dolphins have a lot of locomotion challenges, I guess, compared to terrestrial vertebrates. What are those challenges?
They're not very good on land.
No, they're horrible, man. They can't hop or run or anything. Okay, but what about the water makes it a challenge, more of a challenge than terrestrial?
It's more dense than here.
Right, yeah, so they're swimming through jello, right? Not really, but.
Jello is more dense than water.
Right.
That would suck.
But it gives you a good visual, right? And so there's resistance, right? For every movement they propel forward, they're getting more resistance. And so there's a number of morphological adaptations for that, right? They don't have hair, they're streamlined, they have these flippers for balance, they have this very powerful fluke. But what they also have, which is similar to the kangaroo, is in this peduncle. Okay, there's a word of the day for you. Peduncle. Which is basically the stalk that then attaches to the fluke. They have a lot of elastic tissue. Which compresses around the muscles, and as it contracts for movement, that also acts like a spring. So when it's moving up and down, any contraction against this elastic tissue stores energy and then allows it to move in the opposite direction. So it also has kind of the kangaroo hop, spring-loaded tail.
Would this be the same thing as a cheetah? Like how they run and then like they move all their organs forward and it makes them go faster?
I don't know about that. But that'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, so like would they run like with their...
Well, because all of their bending is going, or their center of gravity is going to be like right there.
The fastest four-legged animals have.
So one of the like biomechanical areas of science is called the biomimicry, where you're looking at biological processes and then trying to incorporate those into, maybe building structures, or in this case, some scientists were able to notice this like spring-loaded contraction resistance thing in this dolphin, and they made dolphin suits, okay, that swimmers could swim in. And there's a lot of adaptations in the dolphin suit. They have structures on them which are similar to shark scales, which allow for reduced friction and reduced tension. But also they have this compression around the muscle, which just like the dolphin elastic tissue, resists their movement and stores energy between their strokes.
So they get a little kick.
So they can go faster. Yeah, and they get a little kickback. Because humans are not good in the water compared to dolphins. I guess we're probably better than elephants, but yeah, you know, I don't know, probably a close race. Anyway, but they got so good at these biomimicry suits that world records were just being shattered for a number of years, and eventually they said, all right, you can't have these anymore because it increases the ability of humans, and these world records don't mean the same thing as when you're comparing to the old stuff. So I think Michael Phelps, when he first got beat, he got beat by somebody who had a suit.
That would be more.
But he never, for a while, he never got beat where someone else was also wearing the same thing he was.